So if I were on, I would have hoped that my loved one or my family visit was my family. My four amazing dogs. That would have been unique, right? To have them and be able to spend some time on the island with them. Actually, it would be a little too selfish of me to even have asked that be the case, because all the travel to Fiji and the travel back, with dogs don't understand that. They don't know where they're going and the rest of it. So it wouldn't be something I'd be interested in doing to them just so I could have the joy of spending time with them in that visit. So I'm not sure. When in the original season, I had put down who I wanted to visit as a close friend of mine, this guy Tom, who's a married guy, a bunch of kids, a great guy, friend of mine for 40 years, straight as an arrow, completely straight man. And there were times in his life where his mother was questioning, what are you doing friends with him? And, are you gay or whatever? And Tom was like, no, for crying out loud or whatever. But Tom was like, if you put me as your family visit, I'd have no chance in being able to explain to people who keep asking me if I'm gay too. And I would have just gone with it. He would have come out of the woods, he said, and he's as big as me, 6'4", bigger, built, heavy guy. He was going to come out of the woods or come across the wherever it was and jump into my arms, and I would have died laughing. It would have been hysterical. So I could have put Tom there too. Could put my sister Kristen. She and I are close, and I think she really, really would have enjoyed kind of the experience of coming out and spending the time. I think it would have been more fun if she actually got to participate in challenges like they have in the past, in those kinds of things, instead of just a visit. But she certainly would have enjoyed the visit. Actually, the truth is, she probably wouldn't have wanted to participate in the challenges, but I would have loved watching her stress about that and trying to figure out what to do. So again, selfishly, I would have loved that. So I think it probably would have been my sister Kristen. Who knows who they might have asked. There are other people in my life that it would have been fun to see. Never in my wildest imagination, being married 14 years, did I ever expect or think that there would be a divorce. So a kind of sad part for me thinks about Emiliano and what it would have been like were we to still be together and to have had him come and enjoy that experience. Never felt like I did toward him for anyone. And I'm sad that's over. But we've been divorced now for, I guess, a couple of years. And time to move on, Dickie. I'm trying. Actually, I'm doing pretty well. But dating, oh my. My. Come on. There've got to be some, stable, bright, kind, warm guys out there who are somewhat attracted to an older guy who's got his stuff together, and give me a shout. Because I'm not into the dating thing. Oh my gosh, it's just crazy. Actually, I'm into dating. I'm not into whatever it is they call dating now. It's not. This family visit thing sure is an interesting time for each of the players to reflect on who they are in their lives. And we viewers get to see that, and it's powerful. How they incorporate that into the show, it just gives us a little more connection. And I guess for season 40, one of the things that for me has been missing is more intimate footage of individual players and the actual game they're playing and the interaction. I like a little more exposure to that in a more relaxed way so that I get a sense for really who they are and how they're doing. When the edit is such that we get only such tiny snippets and bits and pieces, and much more time is spent on challenges, etc., there's a part of what I love about Survivor that gets lost. And so, in the family visit, this exposure to who they are helps with that connection to each of the players. Tribal council, juries, shocked, kind of babbling a little with each other. What's going on? Wendell talks about Jeremy left his squad. What? That's evidence of why Wendell's on the jury. What the hell? Left his squad. Yeah, because I'm there to play the game of Survivor for my squad. Nah, that's just stupid. Gosh, those kind of comments make it so clear as to why people are on the jury as opposed to over there still playing the game. But if you noticed, while Tribal Council was unfolding, there was not a lot of exchange that many of the players were having with Jeremy. In fact, Jeremy sat there at one point kind of with his arms out, looking around like, and you almost know at that moment he's going to use his advantage. He's going to walk away. It's something I would have done. Let's just put it that way. When you recognize that you are not included in most of the engagement, most of the kind of frenetic figuring out what's going to happen, you can't rely on this idea that you had a squad, that you had some kind of alliance with some of the folks that you should be true to or remain in. That just doesn't make any sense. At the point you notice you aren't included, at the point you recognize there are conversations separate from you and you're not being filled in, it's essential that you reshuffle and decide what makes most sense in that moment. That's that adaptability that I talk about, so necessary to play the game well. You're taking information in, you're observing what's happening, and you have to be processing that quickly enough to adapt immediately. So kudos to Jeremy for doing that. That was when I figured out he was going, when his arms are up and he's looking at people like, what? Nobody's saying a word to me. It made sense for him to use his advantage. He used it at the right time. Had he not used it, he would be on edge of extinction instead of Tyson, period. One of the things that's fun, as you watch the Tribal Council is listening to Probst's comments, because often they are designed to have us perceive things in a particular way. More frequently, they're just what Probst is thinking too. And they happen to have us perceive things in a particular way. It's fun for me to watch the things that he says. Last night, one of the things Probst says when the 5 folks kind of stepped aside and huddled to determine who they were going to vote off. Oh, says Probst, looks like the lines are drawn. Are the lines ever really drawn? In the midst of that huddle of 5 people, there are some cracks and there are 5 individual games that remain to be played. So it's not as if the lines are ever really drawn or existed. And in this particular tribal council, it couldn't have been more clear that those lines don't exist. There are all kinds of, there was Jeremy's advantage, there is Sarah's advantage that she plays to steal a vote. There's Kim with an immunity idol. All of these things throw any sense of kind of certainty associated with lines are drawn out the window. Yeah, it looks as if we've got these folks over here and they might do this. But when you say it in the way that you're talking about something so concrete, I think you miss one of those subtleties of the game that I've suggested Probst misses from never having played it. I know this may not be the perfect example of that, and it's just commentary as a good host would do at Tribal Council. But I still have to point out that it isn't a real solid line. And it was fair of him to say that. It looks like the lines are drawn, but there's much more to it. There's much more to this this volcano-like bubbling lava of a game called Survivor. You know, I haven't really talked at length about Sophie, and maybe I won't now, but I do want to make a couple of points. I really, really appreciate, I've always appreciated, even in earlier season, I really appreciate her gameplay. Sophie is a contained player, but she's a very, very, very aware, considered player. So what do I mean by that? It looks to me as if Sophie doesn't allow anything, the tides that go kind of in and out, the explosions and eruptions of emotion, the challenges that get popped in unexpectedly, the ideas that are out of the blue, none of it seems to rattle her in a way that others are often rattled. And I like that. I think the way Sophie is playing the game is smart. It's valuable. It's likely to be very, very successful. She is perceived by others as someone who knows what's going on. You can't help it if you know what's going on most of the time to be perceived that way. But I just want to point out that I think her gameplay is really, really well done. You know, she's the one at Tribal Council in this episode who organized the five to get together and, hey, let's discuss it and just decide who to vote. The huddle. You know, Sophie organized the huddle. Good for her. She did it in the moment as a result of it needing to be done. And so she wasn't even standing out as somebody who is threatening. She did it in a nice way that just seemed like, well, why don't we just talk about it and decide? There are lots of subtle things about the way in which Sophie's been playing, is playing, that I want to point out are good. They're skillful survivor play. And, you know, there are others I could talk about who do that as well, particularly in this Winners at War season. Kim's doing that, etc. But I don't think I've said a lot, or it doesn't feel as if I've talked about Sophie much. And there's a lot going on there, and there has been a lot going on there that I find intriguing and I think is really, really valuable to observe if you're thinking about who plays well. Let me talk about the edge for a minute. Those folks on the edge of extinction appear to be drained. I'm sure they are. It's got to be somewhat exhausting to be in the midst of Survivor and to be on the outs that way. It's even more kind of depleting, I think, than being in the main game and feeling as if you are on the outs. Because at the edge of extinction, you're really on the outs. The shot of getting back in exists, but it's smaller than anything you would have had were you still in the main game. That said, with Tyson coming out now to the edge of extinction and who's left, do any of them have kind of a good chance of winning the show? I say no, and here's why. It isn't that somebody isn't going to get back in. Somebody's going to get back in. But we've already had an Edge of Extinction game in which somebody from the Edge came back and won the show. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. Because once you've had sufficient time away from the main game, I think the other players are going to recognize that there's a danger from this outsider coming back to the game. Tyson particularly was ousted, lived on edge, got back in, was ousted again. If he wins the next challenge, come on. Do you think they're just going to kind of go along and let him come to final tribal council and make his appeal, suggesting how well he played and got back in twice? And nobody's going to do that. They're going to get rid of him again if he's the one that comes back. But no matter who it is, who comes back, who wins that challenge, whatever that challenge is, to get back into the game, and somebody will, I don't think that person has much of a shot of winning the end game this season. I think they'll be dealt with swiftly, and I just don't. If I were out there, I would use that as a target. I would not let them linger and be able to use the kind of logic suggesting that they fought and they fought and they fought and they fought so hard and that's why they deserve to win. I actually don't even think that logic would be enough to a jury, particularly this jury, of winners at war players. So even if they were in the final 2 or 3 and they made that argument, if let's say it was Tyson and he got back in twice, I don't think it would be enough. I think the jurors would say to themselves, yeah, but you were kicked out twice. You lost Survivor twice in this one season and you want us to call you the winner? I think that's the way the logic would go. And I think the winner, as has been the case throughout Survivor, will be awarded based on who the jury sees as playing the game of Survivor well and responsibly accepting responsibility for it. When people don't do that, it doesn't go well. So that's my thought about what might happen, but I don't think Edge of Extinction players really have much of a shot at winning the overall season. 80% of you who are listening to these videos have not subscribed to my channel. Please subscribe. Just hit the subscription button and hit the notification button and you'll be informed when I have another video up for you to listen to. After you've subscribed, comment. Comment positively, comment negatively. No holds barred. Just say what you're thinking. That's what will make our exchange even more valuable. As I'm able, I'll create new videos responsive to that commentary. So like away, or dislike, on that rare occasion you may feel the need to do so. But either way, thank you.